Can you say a prayer with me? God, we need you here. Amen. Want to have some fun tonight? St. Patrick's Day, I want to have some fun. Have some laughs, do a couple social experiments maybe. May the luck of the Irish be with you. First thing I want to do is I want to green the place up a little bit for St. Patrick's Day. I brought a bag like Pastor Stewart. So what I've got here, bottle of water. Got my Montreal Canadiens Stanley Cup here. It looks good there, doesn't it, Dave? Get my water going here.
Oh, yeah, okay. Is there a theme?
Now, the way this works, if you look around, you'll see the non-Canadian fans. Some of them are starting to turn green with envy. And the rest of them are just feeling a little ill and turning green. We'll keep that theme going tonight from time to time. So I want to talk about evangelism. Evangelism is one of those big buzzwords here at Wall Street right now. We're doing this Unbinding the Heart series, and it kind of revolves around evangelism. And I just want to talk about evangelism because it's one of those things that can sometimes be complicated and hard to understand. So I want to break this down into 3 simple points. I can do simple. You ask anybody who can do simple, I can do simple. First thing I want to do is understand the meaning of the word. Now this is important. This is one of those words that, even though evangelism is what churches are supposed to be doing, evangelism is a word that makes churches nervous. Somehow we kind of go out of our way to avoid it, and it's taboo, and it makes people uncomfortable. It's like saying the word Stanley Cup when you're in Ottawa, or playoffs if you're in Toronto. I think that a lot of people kind of, they picture the Bible pounding evangelist standing on the box on the corner of the street, yelling at you about being saved. And to me, that's not evangelism. Honestly, that scares me too. How many people here would want to stand on the corner of the street and evangelize? The fact is, if you look at it simply, I think evangelism is just telling people about God. And if you take this a step further, talk is cheap, but actions speak a lot louder than words. So maybe it's not so much what you say, it's as much what you do. People see the person that you are not through what you say, but what you do. Does that make sense? Anybody else here enjoying some sobriety right now? You ever notice, those guys that used to know back in your using days, when they see you, they get that look in their eye. It's not what you're saying. It's they're seeing the you and how straight and clean and strong you are, and that's what's speaking. AA's really got evangelism down. They know how to do it. It's the whole attrition 12th step thing. So can we perhaps agree as a crowd that evangelism is more important in action than it is in words? Everybody on board with that? Okay. Hey, do you know what Quebec City, Ottawa, and Hamilton all have in common? They're still all hungry for a hockey franchise. So point number 1, evangelism is more action than word. Point number 2, we need to understand that God wants us to be where we are and who we are. Now this is important. You really need to be yourself to do this evangelism thing. Somewhere along the line, this misconception came about that once you catch religion and, you discover the church, that you should throw away your life and, go hang out at the church and everybody should become a minister. But in that reading today, and maybe I'm taking this out of context, but the way I get that reading is the author is talking to the early church and he's saying, stay where you were in life when you found Christ. If you were a Jew, you're a Jew. If you're a Gentile, you're a Gentile. If we bring that up to today's world, if you were a mechanic, you're a mechanic. If you were a nurse, you were a nurse. You need to stay where you are. The fact is, when Jesus was picking disciples, he didn't go out looking for church leaders. He went out looking for fishermen and tax collectors and just everyday people. And why did he do that? Because it wasn't the church leaders that Jesus was trying to attract. It was just the everyday people, the fishermen, the tax collectors, the regular people. And that's still the people that Jesus wants to reach. And if we want to reach them, we have to be ourselves and we have to be authentic. People can really see when you're trying to be somebody that you're not. And I'm doing a couple little social experiments here right now to prove this. I'm going to tell you everything I know about how this service gets from up here to YouTube. This is really very simple. Somebody up there points the camera down at me. The next day, it's on YouTube. Richard, is that about the way it goes? Can you explain that?
Okay, so the way that it goes is I have a video capture device upstairs, which takes all the audio and video feeds. It saves it to the hard drive on the computer. I save the file at the end of the service. I burn it to a disk. I take it home, and then the editing starts. And depending on how long the service is, that could be anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes. After I finish the editing, then I have to convert the file. The reason I need to convert it is because the size of the morning service file, for example, today's was 1 gigabyte of data. If you try to upload 1 gigabyte of data, you're going to be sitting there for about 3 hours. I don't care how fast your computer is, unless it's really, really quick. So I do the conversion, and I convert it to what's called flash video. That takes that 1 gigabyte of data, and it shrinks it down to about 128 megabytes of data, which is more manageable. I then start uploading it to YouTube, which takes about anywhere from half an hour to 40 minutes. After that, I then post it to our Facebook page. Then I start editing the Wall Street page. I add the video to there, and I edit next week's information, who's speaking, who's doing the service. So from start to finish, it's about 3 hours.
So do you see what I mean about authenticity? Who would you want working on your computer? I'm going to try another one here. Catherine, do you mind if I use the piano?
Go for it.
I am very musical. I'm going to play my best one here on piano. You notice how much you really seem to enjoy that. So my point here, and there's a point, is that we all have different gifts. I could have did this exercise with everybody in this room, guaranteed. There is something in this room that everyone is way better at than me. God gave us all gifts. He gave them to us so we could enjoy them and so that we could be ourselves. Your gift might not help you reach people standing here at the front of the church. Maybe it will. But you've got gifts And through those gifts, you can reach people in the community. Jesus is still trying to reach the regular people, the mechanics, the salespeople, the laborers, the nurses, factory workers. A lot of those people are never going to come to church to meet Jesus. We can keep that door open all day with a flashing sign, come on in. They're not coming in. We need to take the church out to them. Who's going to do that better than mechanics and salespeople and Christian nurses and Christian laborers? Christians who share their passions are people that other people can relate to. So can we agree on point number 2, that it's important to be ourselves? All right. Awesome. Do you know what Billy Graham and the Toronto Maple Leafs have in common? They can both bring 20,000 people to their feet screaming, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. So point number 1, evangelism is action. Point number 2, we need to be ourselves. Point number 3, somewhere in the whole formula, we actually need to acknowledge that we're Christian. I am continually blown away by the number of people I meet that are Christian that are still living in the closet. I always think about this message I heard once. I think it was Pastor Doug that told it, about this old country preacher, and he's doing this message about, the strength of God's army, and we've got to get out there, and they've got Christian soldiers marching on the piano and the whole bit. And there's this guy in the back row sitting all by himself, he's got sunglasses on, he's kind of slinking down, and pastor shakes everyone's hand as they're leaving, and finally this guy leaves, and he says, I want to thank you, Pastor, that was a great message. I'm so glad to be part of God's army. And pastor looks at him and said, well, I don't understand. It's a small town, and I've never seen you in the church before. He says, well, I'm with the Secret Service. There are so many people who go to church every Sunday, yet they keep it a secret the other 6 days of the week. Now, I'm not condemning them, because it's hard going against the grain, It's hard getting out there. Don and I went to New Jersey once. Actually, I wore this shirt. We went to a hockey game. The Canadians were playing the Devils. And, we're there, and I got my jersey on, and I'm out there. And it's like, 90 seconds into the game, Canadians scoring. I'm like, yeah, And I swear, it was so quiet in that building that the people in the parking lot could hear me. There was like me and 19,895 Jersey fans. And, Montreal scored that first goal, and then New Jersey scored the next 6. And by about the third, the shirt wasn't feeling that good. And that's the way there's a lot of Christians in the closet. And sometimes it's really hard to find the door out, because it's dark in there. Something that could make it easier is if somebody came along and opened the door a little bit. Shine a little light in, help it out. You ever notice when you're talking to people, it's really easy to talk about the weather, talk about hockey, complain about politics. But you ever notice how nobody really ever mentions church unless you do first? Once you start talking about church, then it's safe. The other Christians can come out of the closet a little bit. So here's my challenge to you this week, this year, this life. I want you to try to look for a little way to open a closet door out there. Doesn't have to be, a sermon. It could be like 3 or 4 words. It's easy. One of my favorite ones is grace. You can keep grace pretty simple. And depending where you are, if you just say a quick grace, you can really freak people out. You're at a sales meeting or something serious, and you just say, Thanks for lunch, God. People stop, and it's a lot of fun. It's no big deal. You can do it, with 2 or 3 little words. My dad was the king of this. I lost my dad when I was young, but Dad had this saying, it was good Lord willing. He'd throw that in anywhere. He'd be talking, we're going to get that old Chevy next week down at Bruce Bob's farm. Good Lord willing, we'll get it home. And it just flowed so naturally, and he used that so often. I swear he could even do it in confrontation, Guy'd be in the yard whining about a price. He could say, yeah, you're an idiot. Good Lord willing, I'm going to kick your ass. But it's, it's no big deal. 3 or 4 simple words. Can you do that? God bless you. Good Lord willing. You've got a Reliant. Lady at my church has one. Even the pastor at my church is a Canadiens fan. My pastor says the Maple Leafs are idiots. It's not a big thing, to drop a little church in now and then. So that's my challenge for you. Can you find the time to become a 3-word evangelist? God bless you.